And we are back again with Your Life, Your Gift podcast. Today's guest is a friend of mine that we've hung out with for a while now. Steve Renfro, how are you today?
Good. How are you guys?
Good.
It's funny. I've actually been a friend of Dave's a lot longer than I've known you, because Dave and I used to have epic coaching battles at Graceland years ago.
Isn't that
They weren't real epic because I always got my butt kicked. The only thing
Yeah.
epic about it was how many points Steve's son would put up on my poor team. But
Yeah.
that was pretty epic, I guess. It was fun.
So a couple weeks ago, we had your wife on, Christy, and she was talking about the fostering and tell us a little bit how it's affected your life since she's basically said that she doesn't even ask you anymore when she's bringing some foster children in the home. She just does it, and you got to sit back and say, hey, this is my wife and this is what she's going to do.
Well, that's right. The funny thing about fostering is it really is a family thing. If your family's not all in, it won't work. And I did call Toby right after the broadcast and said I need a rebuttal because she talked about diapers and stuff like that. I don't do diapers. I just don't change diapers. But what I do is I provide a financial system for us to do that. And I provide all the entertainment, which is when you have foster children, you'll find out that that's huge. But she's a saint, man. You said it the other night, Toby. I don't know how you just take kids in and love them like your own, but she does it. And really my whole family does it. Because like I said, if you're not together as a family fostering, it won't work.
Yeah, she was telling me how much Shelby Lynn has actually helped with the twins that you have now.
Right.
But I know you've helped because I've seen you pushing the strollers and
I do emergency child care is what I do. If you have to go to the bathroom, I'll hold one of them. If I get a phone call, stuff like that. But other than that, entertainment, financially, and that's kind of it. But it's funny because she really didn't get into the story about, I was at UPS for 40 years and retired, and she's always wanted to foster. And we were talking one night, and I said, what's your legacy going to be? What's your life legacy going to be? And I thought, I'm going to work at UPS for 40 years, and I'm going to retire. And both you guys are at Humana, and I was sitting there, big companies. 2 weeks after I'm gone, they're not even going to remember my name. So I thought, that's the legacy that we put out there 40 years. It was like, what can you do to really make an impact? And it's fostering, man. I mean, I'm telling you, I think she said we've had 13, 15, 17, whatever kids do here, but you are imparting to them something that will never go away. I mean, you're changing lives. And that's the bottom line. And they just want somebody to love them, man. That's it.
I can't remember how many times I've asked you how the kids are going or what's going on with them, and are they going to go back with their parents? And you're like, I don't know. We may adopt them. On almost every single case, you've kind of said, I don't know, maybe we're going to adopt them. So that's always seems to be something that's a possibility, right?
Yeah, I'm telling you, once you get into fostering, one of the crazy things you'll find out is this system is a absolute fiasco. It's a mess. I mean, it's not really. You think it's based on the welfare of the children, which is what it's really supposed to be. But what happens is after they're in the system so long, like I better not say names, but Toby knows the little girl we had for a couple of years. Her mom was still a drug addict, but she was in the system for so long that they just kept pushing and pushing, pushing, and finally sent her back. So it initially protects the kids when you get them, but after you've had them for a while, the system is set up for these people to get them back in that house, good or bad. So it's kind of a shame.
But luckily, there's people like you and your family that are able to take them in and change their lives, though.
Yeah, and I'm telling you, the crazy thing about fostering is, and we had a little girl, the little redhead girl, you know who she is, Toby, and she had some issues, but these children, we all three have kids, And we've all done well financially, and our kids are very blessed, I'm sure. The little girl that came to our house, the lady that had her couldn't handle her. She brings her over to our house at 10 o'clock at night with 2 black garbage bags and drops her off in our foyer and just leaves. And this little girl standing there looking at you like, here I am. And that's what the system is. They portray it really nice, out in the media, but it's tough. These kids are tough as nails, man. And the bottom line is they want somebody to hug them. They want somebody to love them. And the funny thing is, I think Christy said this when she was on with you, they will call you mommy and daddy extremely fast because that's what they're looking for. They're looking for that connection.
Did you have a question, Dave?
No, I was just going to say, we talk a lot about, love matters, and that's what you guys are giving, to the kids that don't get it anywhere else. And, it's makes a big difference. And, I've read a book by Bob Goff lately, Love Does. And, it's just basically, it's like, love drives everything. And, that's one of the reasons we really wanted to get this podcast out and this show out, was to just talk about that, the way people are loving on their communities and their neighbors and those that aren't getting it anywhere else, and the difference that it can make in people's lives. So it's really cool to hear that, firsthand from you all, and how you've experienced that with these kids.
Well, I had somebody this last couple of weeks tell me, said, "Hey, you're religious, aren't you?" And I started laughing. I said, "I'm not religious at all. I just have a relationship." And that's the thing. If you can ever get people to realize that the Bible is just a love story, that's what it is. And like I said, we were talking about missions earlier. You're supposed to believe Jesus with your heart, and you're supposed to go to the world and tell other people. That's 2 things in the Bible it tells you to do, the main 2 things. That's really it, And so we make it real difficult, and we make reading the Bible real hard because a lot of people are just getting into it, want to read the King James version, where it's the ifs and the thous and the art. But man, there's all kinds of translations out there. Find something that you like, and you'll find out it's a love story.
So you mentioned missions, and we've talked about some of the missions that you've taken in the past, but I really haven't got into any detail with them. How the struggles that you had, the things that you went through to be able to do what you're doing, the whys, and how did you just drop everything and do it? Do you have any stories or some of the things about some of the missions that you've taken that may hopefully inspire some people to want to do some of the things you've been able to do?
Yeah, I'll tell you what's really interesting about missions is I never really thought I wanted to go on the mission field, but I can guarantee you, and Dave, you said you were interested in it somewhat. If you ever go, it'll change your life forever. You'll never be the same when you come back here. So see, I've been to Mexico 4 or 5 times. We went to Russia, been to Canada, and then really some of the most impactful ones I count as missions is working with Jacob. Because everybody thinks the mission field is overseas or international, which there's a lot of it. But man, there's a lot of missions right here in your own backyard, and that's what Jacob Boger did, and he changed my life forever. You talked about love. I've never met anybody in my life who loved everybody. I mean, sitting in boardrooms with CEOs when we were trying to get financing for some of his missions, he's the same person as he was talking to the homeless people out on the streets and feeding them. He didn't change, and so. But yeah, going on the field is interesting and fun. I tell people, a lot of people ask me, were you afraid to go? And I always tell people, if you're afraid to go, then don't go. Because if you're going over there with fear, then you're not going to go over there and do the job you're supposed to do. I think Russia was probably the most impactful one I went on. There was, I think, 20 something of us that went. We went to Siberia. It took us 25 hours to fly over and 25 hours to fly back. It was in the middle of nowhere. We were about 80 miles, I think, if I remember correctly, north of Mongolia, where they were killing Christians. So we weren't allowed to say we were going over to tell people about Jesus or doing missions or anything. But it was in an old Coca-Cola factory. We can't even get in our cars and drive to church for an hour and a half service. And there was people over there walking 4 or 5 hours just to come to these services. Just hungry for God. People were hungry for God over there.
while they were being persecuted.
Well, yeah, it's actually interesting. On that particular trip we went on, the 2 days after we left, one of the pastors stayed behind because he was helping the pastor over there in Russia, try to grow his church. But 2 days after we left, they arrested him on a visa violation. They took all the Bibles from the church and closed it down because it was growing so big. It was exploding. I mean, it was. I've never been in services like that. Never. And you don't have services like that here.
What made you decide to go there?
I don't know. I mean, I think if sometimes I'm 60, so you finally figure out in life sometimes that the biggest blocker of everything that you want to do is you, right? I mean, I have excuses for everything. The buts, Dave, but I don't want to do this or whatever. And my wife wanted to go, and Toby, I go to a pretty active church here, Church on the Rock in New Albany, and I think at that time I had already been to Mexico once, so I had a little taste of it. So I was all for it. But it was, missions aren't cheap. I think I spent $15,000 to take my wife and I over there and back. And
so what are normally the intentions? Of what are you going over there to do? Is there always something different, or is it something in your case? Was it just spreading the word?
It goes back to what you said, Dave. You're going over there to love on the people. You really are. That's what you're doing. And really, most of the times we went on the mission field, we were always doing stuff with the children, because to the children, the children I always feel like you can make the biggest impact with. And so we went over. We had ministers with us, and we had some praise and worship people. So we kind of did it all in these services. We had them in the mornings, at night. The praise and worship was crazy over there. They were playing American songs and singing them in Russia, but they were jumping up and down so much they crushed the platform. It's just, you don't, over here, if somebody raises their hand like this and everybody's staring at them. Over there, it's just, it's crazy. It's how we act at ball games. Here is how they act at church over there.
Yeah, I know some mission trips are very like purposeful. They have, something that they're going for. Some of the guys that I've been at my Bible study they call it Iron Man at Northside have gone over to build homes or to build a church building or whatever it might be. But while they're there, it's all about loving on people. They're part of the mission is to go and get something done. But then the main part of the mission is to love on people. But one of the things I wanted to ask you about, Steve, is I get constant feedback from guys that have gone over on these trips, and they talk about how they're going, at least on the first one, they're going with this mission to go help change people's lives, but they say their life and their heart was changed and impacted way more than what they were ever actually able to deliver while they were there. Would you say that was similar for you?
I agree 100%. Like I said, when you come back, your life will never be the same. I mean, if you come back to the United States of America and you feel not blessed, then you missed it. Because when you come back from those places, it's I went to Mexico, Guadalajara, and they have a hill down there. It's called the Hill, and I don't know how far it is, 2 or 3 miles of car hoods and styrofoam all just put together, and it's a community. And we drove way up in the middle of this thing, and there's a little opening. And as soon as we got there, all the kids came out, and they were dirty. But all the women are prostitutes, and all the men are drug dealers, so they're not around. But these kids, man, they just wanted somebody to hold their hand. They wanted somebody to love them. We gave them some food. At the end of the day, man, they're looking for hope. And the bad thing is when you leave, the reason that you're really impacted, Dave, is because when you leave, for most of the people on the mission trips that I've been on, when you leave, that there's not much hope for them. They can't get out of that. Unless we went down as a country and pulled a lot of these kids out, they can't get out of that. So they just start in the cycle, just like their parents. And unfortunately, those little girls will probably end up being prostitutes, and the little boys will probably end up being drug dealers. It's sad. It really is sad.
It is sad. Now, did you learn about all of your mission trips through your church, or was there other organizations that you kind of hooked up with to do that?
Yeah, I went on all of them were through my church or through a church that's connected with our church. Um, and then of course, Jacob Boger was involved. He was at our church too. So when he got involved with something, I just jumped right in because I knew if he was going, it was going to impact people somewhere. You know, but Toby, you said something about funny stories, but like so going to Russia, I did learn when you go on mission trips that I can live for a whole week on peanut butter, crackers, and Tootsie Rolls. And when you go to these countries where everybody, one of the only things they have to bless you with is food. They'll make crazy food and they want you to eat it. And it insults them if you don't eat it. So, you take a couple of bites or whatever. But so I could live on crackers, peanut butter, and Tootsie Rolls. Well, when we went to Russia, nobody speaks English. You have to wait till you hook up with your interpreters. I mean, nobody speaks. The flights you get on, our plane could have been going down and we were having a big time because there's no English. But I went to I call it customs. It's like a barn over there in Siberia. And she opened my suitcase and she looked at my Tootsie Rolls. Again, this is how we communicate with each other. She just looked at me and she said, ah. And I go, oh. And she puts them under her counter. She picked up my peanut butter. She said, ah. I said, oh, that's going too. So she took all my snacks and put them under the counter. And they told us, you don't fight with anybody for anything. You just thank them and go on. So I did go over there with no Tootsie Rolls, peanut butter, or crackers, which was tough to do.
How you gonna live without your Tootsie Rolls? I mean,
I don't know. Jesus, I said, Jesus, get me through this week without Tootsie Rolls.
Did any of your missions have food that you were like, man, this is good?
Yeah, Russia was really interesting. They, the way that they honor you and bless you is with the food because they don't have any money. So Russia was really cool. They have like 7 salads before they eat. It's the craziest thing. They bring in some salad and you eat it, and then they bring in another one and another one, and by the time but that trip, Christy and I walked downstairs for something and I guess to use the restroom or whatever. And we went downstairs, the kitchen was there. And I'm not kidding you guys, there was a piece of red meat the size of a 70-inch TV down there. It had to be a bear. It was the biggest thing ever. Just, it was all just meat. And that's what they were serving us. So I don't know what it was. If you ask them what it was, like I asked them on the plane, I said, what is this? And they kept saying beef fish. So, I mean, you can't get an answer out of them besides that. So you just eat it.
So you like beef fish? Is that what you're saying?
Whatever beef fish is, I've had it. I don't know if I like it or not, but I've had it.
What advice would you give somebody who's trying to decide whether or not they want to take a mission trip or something with their church? Right now with COVID, I don't know if anything's even going on, but I know that Shelby Lynn was about to go to someone right before, right when COVID hit. But so you're obviously your children are going to be able to do things like that. But what would you say to somebody who's trying to decide whether or not it's something that's right for them?
Well, if you're trying to decide, you're not ready. You just got to decide. I mean, seriously, if you have the heart for it, then go. Like I said, it will impact you so much more than it'll impact the people down there. It's life changing. I mean, I spend most of my time now being thankful. I'm so thankful for everything I have, everything we have here. And that's what I'm not going to get political on you, but that's what kind of upsets me on the nature of what's going on right now is I'm telling you, man, the devil comes to kill, steal, and destroy, and he is separating our nation through politics. That's the great way to get in, and that's my personal feeling is that I've never seen a time in my life where we are so anti each other, and it's not what we're supposed to. This one's not what it's about, man.
Yeah, especially considering that we have it so good as a country. We have it so good as individuals. We have so many opportunities. No matter who you are, you have a great opportunity in this country. And so, yeah, but it takes somebody's eyes to be open from this times where you were talking about going to Russia or Mexico or whatever, where maybe somebody didn't see that, somebody didn't understand that. And so when we decided to do this individual podcast, it was really around trying to figure out what is the good in the world that we can highlight. What are the things that like you and your family are doing that we need to highlight, and what other organizations do we need to spread the word about? Because the happiness and the joy that's out there is abundant. It's just getting stifled by everybody's negativity around everything else when there's so many great opportunities to live a wonderful life. So you're 100% right.
Yeah, the other interesting thing too. I know we keep saying love, 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 but it is, man. You going overseas is great, but if you're not ready to go overseas, then there are plenty of places around here. And I'm telling you, some of the most impactful things I've ever been involved in are right here, right across the river in downtown Louisville. I mean, it's amazing. And so maybe you wet your beak a little bit by getting involved in something local, and it's I don't know. I've always thought there's got to be more than me. I mean, it's what are we on the planet for, man? I mean, we all have nice things and we live a certain life, and when you're gone, you don't take it with you. So what happens if at the end of the day they say, man, that guy he made an impact on a lot of people, and it's because he loved people. And I tell my kids all the time, the best testimony that you can have is your walk, how you live. I like it if somebody says, I want what that guy has. They might even know what you have, but they see something in you, even though maybe they're not even saved or they have a relationship with Christ, but there's something about you that they like, you know? And so,
Yeah, one of my favorite quotes is it says, preach the gospel daily, but say very little.
yeah,
So it's preach it in your actions and your words and your walk, like you said.
yeah.
So
Well, it's, your testimony is the most powerful tool that you have. And a lot of people you talk to say, "Well, I really don't have a testimony." Everybody has a testimony, and they're all awesome because somebody needs to hear yours, whatever it is. And so when I've gotten older, I finally realized that if your testimony is not changing all the time, my testimony shouldn't be what I did back when I went on mission trips. That's 10 years ago when I was going to Russia or whatever. Your testimony should be what you did yesterday and what I'm going to do tomorrow, what I'm going to do the next day. So that's my life now as a retired person is, what am I going to do this week? It's I try to do something weekly to help people, but man, I fail so much that I just got Jacob Boger standing on my shoulder, saying, "Hey, he didn't take no for an answer, and he never stopped." Like I said, I've never met anybody like him.
Yeah, and I think that one of the most impactful days that I've ever had was with me and my father. We went to hand out Thanksgiving dinner or Thanksgiving lunch, really, at Generation Church, and just the joy you could see on his face being able to bring those folks in there. And he was standing outside going, "Hey, you want something to eat? We got some food in here. We got Thanksgiving in here. Do you want anything?" It didn't matter who you were or what you were doing. If you were riding by on a bicycle and you wanted some food, you can go and come on in. And it impacted my dad so much that he brings it up all the time, where he just talks about how great of a situation that was, and he loved to be a part of it. And so, I mean, I really appreciate all the things that you've done and the friendship we've had. But I mean, there's been many times you prayed for me and vice versa. So it's one of those things that it's nice to be blessed at this point, but we need to do more for others, like especially like your wife is doing.
Well, the thing though, you guys, and it's really cool what you're all doing because at the end of the day, like I said, everybody you're putting on is loving people in some form or fashion. Whatever they're talking about, and I think we at some point we just got to start being bolder than we are. I know there's lots of times I feel like I'm supposed to pray for somebody and I don't do it, or I feel like I should say something and I don't do it. And I always feel like when you get to heaven, God's going to say, "Hey, sit down, man. I want to show you this movie, My Good and Faithful Servant. You were you did a great job, but let me show you all the things I put right in front of you that you missed, that you didn't do, you know." And so I don't want those. I'll tell you one of them with Toby. My relationship with Toby was always about football. And so, I never want to push Jesus on somebody, but hopefully they see the person I am. But so Toby was going through some things in his life, and I showed him this. I took a picture of it, but he wanted a certain job. And I was driving one day, and you can make it sound weird if you want to. It's not weird, but God told me Toby's going to get that job because I was praying for him. I kept thinking, I kept saying, Father, I want, Toby needs this job. He's my friend. Please bless him. So I wrote down in my Bible, Toby's going to get this job, and I put the date on there. And I shut my Bible, and I didn't say anything. I didn't tell him. I didn't say anything. And prayers. People get frustrated because prayers don't happen the minute you pray it. I don't know how long it was, maybe a month and a half or 6 or 8 weeks, whatever it was. But he called me up one day and he said, "Hey, man, I got that job." And I sent him a picture of that Bible and I said, "God told me you're going to get that job." And I think, tell people the needs that you have. Let people pray for you and be bold enough to tell them, tell them what's going on in your life.
That's awesome.
That is awesome. Well, Steve, I've really enjoyed this chat and appreciate all that you're doing, to spread God's love in Jesus' name all over the world, really, but especially here in our backyard with what you and your wife do. And, we know each other, like you said, from way back, but all that well. So I've really enjoyed getting to learn a little bit more about your heart for Jesus. And I appreciate you coming on our show and sharing and talking about this. Hopefully it lights a fire in somebody else out there.
Well, I can tell you what, forget the buts and the woe is me's and all that. And if you really want to go, go. Don't go with fear, just go. So
All right, well,
and maybe somebody on here can help me pray for Toby and free up some of my time because I spend a lot of time praying for him and I could use some spare time praying for other things in my life. So contact Toby at that website right there and pray for him.
There you go. Well, thank you, Steve. I appreciate it. Dave, you have a wonderful evening. I appreciate you coming on.
All right, you guys have a great night.